Are you a business guy stuck at a stage in your career where you're looking for a sense of purpose and community? Are you a retired athlete feeling lost without your team and the structure? This is the place for you. This is Live in the Lab, and I'm Keith Bilous, live in the Business Athlete Performance Lab. Hi, I'm Keith Bilous, and this is Live in the Lab. All right. A little bit of weirdness in front of the camera there for anybody who's watching, because I'm like, hey, where's the button? Where's the button? I can't get it going. How did you go viral on TikTok? You were on America's Got Talent. How much do you get paid to be on AGT? Oh, you didn't get paid. Keith and Steve here in Live in the Lab.
You're a great interviewer. I love it.
48 miles, 48 hours. And not just once. You ain't seen nothing yet. I hit 50 last time, and I'm like, yeah, things are a little different than they were 10 years ago. So trust me, things are to keep. You have no time for the BS that much of society seems to put on the table. Why is that? Like, what you're talking about is real right now. There's just no bullshit here, but it's just real. We brought you in with some Marley. I said, Joseph, let's talk music for a second. You said, well, Keith, oldies, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I've never talked to a sir before. Why are you a sir? In many ways, we're the same story. I came from nothing. You came from nothing. I think the old saying goes that if you want a trophy, you climb Everest. If you want respect, you climb K2. I've built an AI myself, and it's pretty fascinating when you can have a conversation with yourself with your own knowledge. Have you done that before? Why are we rushing to make these tools if all they're going to do is hurt humanity? Does the world need an Oppenheimer moment with AI?
What a fun show.
So, who's Dale Weise?
Wow, that's a good question.
We spoke about identity, and we spoke about loss of identity.
I was in the NHL for 10, and then professionally I was 13.
We're looking to speak to retired athletes like yourself. We're looking to speak to business guys who are trying to get to that next stage in life.
Everything in my whole life since I was 5 years old, I've identified as a hockey player. From the time I was 5 years old, my only dream was to be a hockey player. And when you talk about identity, for me, I'll admit I don't know what my identity is anymore. I'm struggling mentally with kind of just letting go of the spotlight a little bit. That feeling that I would get on a Saturday night walking into the Bell Center.
I can't imagine the emotion of going from being on stage in front of 20,000 people, and then it's all gone.
And I think that's something maybe I'm still struggling with, and I need to just let go.
There's that camera. There it is. Oh, I'm a happy tree. That's the tunes playing in the background here. Streaming from Epidemic Sound, some Joseph Alessi. I put the teaser up at the beginning of the show. 51 seconds of it. Of what? You know it's coming. Today, we've been pumping it all week. After the buzzer with Dale Weise. Here's the thing. You know, we watch these athletes, young age, working their way through the amateur ranks. Let's go over here. Amateur ranks all the way up to junior. They hit the big leagues. My boy's gonna play in the big leagues. We idolize them. We put their names on our backs. We walk around the arenas and we say, hey, we got Trube on the back of our jersey. We got Wheeler. We got Scheifele. We got Weise. We ask for their autographs. We put them on a pedestal. We adore them. Oh, we adore them. We go watch them in practice. We watch their careers unfold in front of us. Some of them make the big cash. But most of them, they don't. They make a good living. Nobody's sitting here suggesting they don't make a good living. Retired athletes, professional athletes. But that's not the point. That's really not the point at all, frankly. We take these athletes and we put them on a pedestal and we watch them. We watch them rise. We idolize them. Their careers age in front of us, publicly in front of our eyes. We adore them, we chastise them, we love them, and we hate them. And then you know what? Poof. They wake up one day and their career is done. No more adulation. No more people watching. No autographs. You're now playing Friday night hockey in some rural community center with a bunch of buddies drinking some beer along the way. And there's nothing wrong with that, as Dale would tell you, but it's different. So, today's show, we've been talking about it all week. We're launching a brand new segment here live in the lab. And it's called After the Buzzer with Dale Weise. And Dale's going to meet with many athletes like himself that have gone through the career, the athletic career, to a point where the game is done. No more going to the arena. And what is next? How do I find my next? How do I find my next identity? So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to stop the monologue. The best person to tell the story is Dale himself. So I invite you to sit back for the next 37, 38 minutes and listen to Dale tell his story about life after the game in this exclusive part 1 of a 2-part series, which will conclude next Friday, November 10th. So I'm going to do a little bit of fandangling here on the old machine here and flip on my sit down with Dale Weise.
Hey everybody, you got Keith Bilous here, live in the lab, live in the Business Athlete Performance Lab, and you're probably noticing there's somebody here with us, and we're in a different spot. I'm really pleased to say today that we're announcing a brand new segment, a brand new show coming out of the lab. It's called After the Buzzer, Life After the Game with Dale Weise. So, who's Dale Weise?
Well, that's a good question. At the moment, I am a 35-year-old father of 4. I'm working my way through a new adjustment in life. I retired 2 years ago from hockey. I got a couple real estate properties that I'm now managing. I have a new business that I'm acquiring soon, and I think I'm just trying to find that next stage in life and where I'm going.
We spoke about identity, and we spoke about loss of identity, and we spoke about where we sit in today's life, and you were an NHL hockey player. How many years did you play?
I was in the NHL for 10, and then professionally I was 13. So for me, when I'm looking at over my career and what I'm most proud about, I think it's my longevity. I don't think anyone would have expected me to play that long, and I think I even impressed myself.
Let's take it back to the beginning. So as a young boy growing up, I have to assume you had entrepreneurial parents.
Zero. I think that's something a lot of people ask me is, where do you get the inspiration from? How did you decide you wanted to, start a real estate business or get into these other avenues? And my parents were very blue collar. So zero entrepreneurial spirit, I think is maybe almost negative, because I brought up some ideas when I was younger with my parents, and not that they weren't pushing me towards those goals, but it was just not anything that came from.
But being an entrepreneur, Dale, and being a hockey player, being a business guy, a lot of similarities, I have to think.
Very similar. And I think that's something that gets lost for a lot of guys. I think when I started getting into real estate a little bit as I was playing at the end of my career, guys were like, oh, like, how do you get into that? Why do you do that? What is it? And I think I started looking at some of the similarities, like commitment. When you're a hockey player, it's a 12-month job. It's not just, you see everybody play from September to April and then they take the summer off. It's just not like that anymore. It's a whole life commitment, 24 hours a day, your diet, the way you're sleeping, the way you're recovering. The commitment side is huge. And not only, you learn how to work on a team from a young age. That's what I love about it, is you have so many different personalities on a team, and you got to find out where you fit. And I think that's where I was successful. I look at on a team, maybe I wasn't the most skilled guy. I was never the most skilled guy, but I always found my niche on the team on how to be successful. And I think when you look at the business world, whether you're starting something, you're buying something, or whether you're getting into whatever it is in the business world, you have to find a niche that you can be successful at. And if you're not successful at the start, find where you fit in and find a way as you're moving, something we talked about a little earlier.
Yeah. So Dale, to our audience, as we know, we're building up a brand new show here. We're looking to speak to retired athletes like yourself. We're looking to speak to business guys like myself who are stuck, who are trying to get to that next stage in life. And we're trying to do that for our audience out there. So we invite you guys to join us weekly, join us in the lab. Our ambition here, and you know how I feel about ambition, Dale, I always say with ambition gives you permission for success and failure. Without ambition, you've already failed. Absolutely. We're trying to do that here in the lab. When you're in a lab, you can attempt, you can fail, you can experiment. So that's the purpose with this show. That's the purpose of bringing Dale in, to connect with you guys, to share Dale's experiences as an athlete, as somebody who's grown as a pro athlete, who's, if I may say this, whose identity has been identified as an athlete.
Everything in my whole life since I was 5 years old has I've identified as a hockey player. From the time I was 5 years old, my only dream was to be a hockey player. My parents, as I was growing up, would always ask me, well, what do you want to be? What do you want to be when you grow up? It was a hockey player. And when people told me, you need a plan B, I never had a plan B. It was laser focused on being a hockey player. And when I had to retire 2 years ago, partially by choice and partially my career ran its course, and I had to make a decision. Was I going to play in Europe and be away from my family, or was I going to start something new? And that was a scary thing for me.
I bet.
It was really scary because I was at a point where financially I was okay for a little bit, but I knew in a couple years down the line, if I wanted to continue to live the way I wanted to live and give my family the best that they could, I had to find a way to do something else financially. So that was scary. And when you talk about identity, for me, I'll admit I don't know what my identity is anymore. Like I said, from 5 to 33, I was a hockey player, identified as a hockey player. I spoke of myself in my own personal thoughts as Dale Weise, the hockey player. And now I don't know. Like I have a couple business things going on, and I'm getting into that world, but I think I'm struggling mentally with kind of just letting go of the spotlight a little bit. You get out and you play beer league on Friday nights and stuff like that now. And I got about 4 people watching, and it's a far cry from the Bell Center on Hockey Night in Canada, where you just feel the buzz walking in. And I think I'm trying to maybe personally find that fire again, something that can really give me the chills and that feeling that I would get on a Saturday night walking into the Bell Center. Man, you got the cameras on you got your sharp suit on, just trying to find that feeling and just trying to find that identity outside of hockey, something I'm really struggling with.
That's a lot to unpack. I can't imagine the emotion of going from being on stage in front of 20,000 people, nationally televised broadcast hockey, accolades from fans, wanting your autograph, putting you on a pedestal, if I may say that, and then it's all gone. And you have to make the decision yourself to retire, essentially. Or is it a way where, or is it a double-edged sword where nobody wants you and you're forced to make that decision?
Yeah, it was for me. And I think that's something maybe I'm still struggling with, and I need to just let go. Is we finished in 2020. When I finished, we were playing in the bubble. Very unique situation. And I'm away from my family for 3 months. I came back. I had a deal in Switzerland. But like I said, I was in a tough spot where I was away from my family for 3 months. I was going to have to go to Switzerland for 8 months, be away from my family again. I had young twins. My oldest was, he was 7. My oldest son, Hunter, was 7. Jordana was 5. It was just a really tough situation. So I said, you know what, I'm going to sit it out. And I ended up, it was like a semi-retirement for 8 months, and I got to see what it was like, but I wasn't really retired. So, and it was a struggle then too. It was a struggle with, should I have done this? Should I have done that? Should I have re-signed maybe in the minors and try to work my way back up, or what it was? And I think it's something I'm still struggling with how it ended, because it was on me where I didn't really have a lot of options in North America, and they're telling you can't play anymore. But then you have that inner drive. I play against beer league guys that are 55 that still think they got it. So you just, I'll never lose that inner belief that I could play. And I still watch TV, and as much as it pains me, it's, oh, I could do this, I could do that. I can't. And it's been a struggle for sure.
It's got to be hard to admit those words, I can't.
Yeah. I think for me, this is probably the first time I've ever said it, because when you're trying to be a professional, you can't ever have I can't come into your head, because you always think you can. You're always going to find a way. But there eventually comes a time for everybody where you can't. Like, you're at that crossroad where you physically can't do it as an athlete. Mentally, you know it. But every professional athlete has that fire in their heart where you're never it's going to try to outsmart your brain.
Yes.
And you reach the crossroad. And I'm still at the crossroad where I still think I got it. And I think that's what I'm struggling with, is I need to let it go, and I need to fully dive myself into this new identity that we talk about.
I know I've been struggling. I've shared with you earlier, and I've been sharing with our audience, Dale, that I've been struggling with my own identity. I started my social media company, sold it, did well for myself, set myself on a path. But since then, coming back into the workforce, reflecting upon who I was yesterday is not who I am today. And it has been a struggle for myself as well. You said something earlier in our discussion, Dale, about no plan B. Now, in my experience, entrepreneurs always have a plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E. But you also said that you had no plan B. You were going to be a hockey player, and that's just what you were going to be. So talk about the power of being focused on one thing and the risk of not having a backup plan.
It's, you know what? It's an incredible driving force when you're so laser focused that there is no way that I'm going to fail. Because essentially your plan B, C, and D is yourself. And you believe so much in yourself that, okay, whatever happens, I am going to find a way to be successful. And it was, for me professionally, I started from the bottom and I was fighting and playing on the fourth line, and you're working your way up and you're navigating all these things. Essentially, you are using, plan B, C, and D when, you're not going to be a first line scorer to try to, I don't know what the proper coordination is between business and hockey, but that's where I'm starting to gain confidence in the business world, is reflecting on those things that I did in hockey, where you get in a tough situation and you bet on yourself and you go through, like I said, the plan B, C, D, where I have to do this. I got to do something different. I have to reinvent myself, which I did a couple times going on different teams where you're back at the bottom, you got to restart and you work your way back up. You're gaining trust of the coach. A lot of things that we talk about that can really help you succeed in the business world that as an athlete, you don't even think. And it's just talking with business guys like yourself, we see how much we really relate to each other.
Yes. Yeah. Dale, the journey, so your hockey journey, you weren't top round draft choice. You've had to work your way through your entire career. Share your journey with our audience. Share where you started, share how many teams you've played on, how many games you played in the NHL. It's difficult to make professional hockey. B, it's difficult to make a living from it, but you did it successfully for 10 years on multiple teams.
Yeah, my story's good, and it's not different from a lot of other people's, but I just think it's very similar to a lot of guys where, I started hockey playing in Winnipeg, my minor hockey. I played all the way up till I was 15. I was a good hockey player when I was younger. I would never have been a guy where someone would say, oh, that guy's going to play in the NHL for sure. They probably wouldn't have said that until I played about 200 games. So yeah, I think he can play, because I was never the most skilled guy, like I said. And I was good when I was younger, and I was an 8th round Bantam pick in junior. And I think that's honestly, if I can think back and pinpoint a time where I really had a chip on my shoulder, that was probably it. Where I thought I deserved to go higher. I thought I was better. And being selected in the 8th round, which there's a lot of people that don't get drafted in the Western League and make their way. So I should have looked at it as an accomplishment at that point. But as a young 14-year-old kid, I was pissed off. I had a chip on my shoulder from then. And I never really took it off, because I went into junior. I got cut at 16 and 17. I came back to the Manitoba Junior League for a month. Swift Current traded for me. I got called back up. I finished the year, did really well. I had an individual team award as the most improved guy, and I think probably pretty well deserved. Like, I went from playing on the 4th line, and I probably finished on the 1st line by the end of the season. We weren't a very good team. 18, I got so much better. Thought I should have got drafted in the NHL at 18. I got passed over the year before, 18. I got passed over, and I didn't get an invite. And my agent at the time, and this story stands out for me, my agent at the time, we're sitting at my table in the summer, and I'm like, you couldn't even get me an NHL invite, like not even a tryout? And he's like, nah, I couldn't. But I knew another guy that I grew up playing with. And he's like, why? He told me he had an invite for him to go to the St. Louis Blues camp. And I'll never forget this. And I was like, that like the chip on my shoulder just grew. And I was like, okay. I let that agent go. We didn't talk from that day on. I was like, no, we're not going to do business anymore. If you don't believe in me the way I believe in myself, we got no business working together. So came back at 19 and really put things together that I knew the previous years I could put together, and finally became a really complete player. Got drafted in the NHL that year. I was the last cut from the New York Rangers. That training camp the following year, pretty good from a guy the year before who was a double year passed over to almost making the NHL at 20. Went through some ups and downs, 2.5 years in the minors, a couple call-ups at the time, nothing really substantial. Didn't play really well when I got called up for a couple games. I got cut 4 years in a row, so that 4th pro training camp, got cut again from the NHL. Vancouver picked me up on waivers. From there, finally got my foot in the door in the NHL, and the rest is history from there. A lot of ups and downs, but to go on to play 10 years, to me, is, I think, a testament to just how hard I've worked, the commitment, and again, me finding my niche on each team each year where I could contribute and bring some value.
Dale, all cliches aside, what do you think was the one quality that general managers, owners said, we want that guy on our team?
The one quality outside of anything hockey specific, I truly believed when a coach looks down his roster and he sees a guy like me on the bench, he just saw a guy that he could trust every shift was going to be all out. And I think that's all you could really ask for from a teammate. If I look at it from a coach's perspective, that was a guy that I could trust every shift that he goes out, he's going to give me everything he has. And I think that's something I'm really proud of.
Okay, so let's relate identity with hockey, finding a space, lasting for 10 years in the NHL, clawing and scratching. Let's try to relate that to business. Our audience, we got business guys that are clawing and scratching, trying to keep themselves alive in business, finding a space. It would seem to me, Dale, that finding a role is critical to longevity.
Yeah, I think, when I look at my every single day, I'm walking into the rink, I'm checking the lineup. Like, am I even in the lineup today? What do I need to do in practice to have a better practice so I can get myself in the lineup? To me, it's exactly the same. Like, they're interchangeable, because every single day I had to show up and I had to perform. And when I look at business and guys are scratching and clawing and they're trying to get those results, you gotta show up every day and be ready. And I think that was the thing for me. As you learn as you go on in the league, the first couple of years, it was like, well, I could have a bad practice. I'm probably going to be in the lineup. I didn't know how serious I had to be every single day. And I think that's, when you hear guys, they had to learn to be a pro, or they had to learn, what does that mean? You hear it all the time. He had to learn. Well, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. And I think what that means to me was, every single day you have to be on. You can't take a practice off. You can't have a bad practice. And especially when you're a bubble guy, you can't take a day off. And as cliche as that is, and I hate to say it, but you can go and have a bad practice, and all of a sudden the coach is like, wow, maybe he's losing it. Well, maybe he's into something off the ice. Maybe he's not ready. I'll give someone else a chance. And then that guy comes in, takes your spot, scores 2 goals. You never get back in the lineup for a month. So for the business guys, when I think about it, and you just really can't let your mind relax. And that's something we talked about the other day, is you just can't let it slip. You get comfortable. Your ego takes over. You feel comfortable. You just can't ever relax.
Complacency is a killer, isn't it, Dale?
Huge.
Yeah, complacency can be a killer. At least I find in business, you become complacent, you get left behind. Mm-hmm. Same thing with athletic sports.
Oh, absolutely. And I had a conversation actually with a business guy, a good friend of mine. He sells tires in Winnipeg, and a lot of tires. Services themselves, a lot of them. And we got talking about, when things are going good for you. And then I don't know how we got down the road of this conversation, but we always talk business and stuff. And I love picking his brain. And I got talking, and I said, well, like, what is it for you when times are good? Like, how do you reel yourself back in? And he was like, that's a good question. I never really thought about it. And, he kind of related it to me, and he was like, well, if I see one thing slipping in my life, not necessarily my business, then I really have to check myself, because if something's slipping in my life, then my business is falling apart too. And if something's slipping in my business, then maybe my marriage is slipping on that end, or maybe I need a date night with my wife. And just the complacency, what we just talked about, was something that he pointed out. And I love to think of it from a hockey perspective. It was like, okay, maybe I didn't realize I was having a bad time at the rink. Maybe I needed to spend a little more time focusing on my marriage or something. Like, the complacency in your life, how you do one thing. Again, as a hockey player, I'm learning to not use the cliches as much, but how you do one thing is how you do everything.
It's the old adage where you practice how you play. If you can't show up for practice, you're not going to perform well in a game. I like, Dale, that you brought up the comment of how do you be a pro? And, many fans, people, they see athletes work for 60 minutes. They see them play the hockey game for 60 minutes. They see them play the basketball game for 60 minutes. But what they don't see is the other 23 hours in the day that they're having to perform. It's the same as business, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's nothing different. And I think this is the argument I love having with people in bars and stuff, where they guys are, well, you only have 60 minutes of work, where I worked 8 hours today. It's like, I understand. Physically, I had to be present for 1 hour, but I also had, 30 minutes of video, and I had an hour and a half workout before that. And I have to keep myself in absolute tip-top shape. I have to be eating right. I have to be sleeping right. My commitment is 24 hours, where, you could go in for 8 hours and probably milk it a little bit and probably mail it in. So that commitment is something that I stand by. But again, it's your whole life. That's what being a pro, being a good business athlete is about. Consistently being that every single day.
Boring, isn't it?
Boring is the perfect word. Boring is like nullifies complacency, because it's consistent. It was such a good line.
We're so accustomed to wanting to stay up late, watch TV shows late, live a full life. But yet what I've found, Dale, is the more boring my life is, the more successful I am with my marriages, my relationships. It's the structure that we as businessmen and athletes crave, which is structure. And that's a difficult thing for much of our audience to wrap their head around, which is trying to identify the 23 hours of your day to perform for the 1 hour you have to perform like an athlete.
Yeah, and I think that's something I've struggled with the last 2 years, is finding that structure again, and just finding, I spent my whole life being structured. It's like, okay, meetings are at 9 and practice is 10, and we're going to get on the plane. The bus will take you to the plane at 10:30, and everything is structured for you in the hockey world.
You didn't have to think.
No, it was. I'm just following the guy in front of me because I know where I got to be at what time, and you lose that structure as a retired athlete, and it's like, my life, when I stopped for the 8 months, then I went to Sweden after, but the 8 months when I stopped and I had no structure, like, it was a struggle for me, because it's like, well, I can stay up to 2 a.m. this time, but I'm going to work out in the morning. But then I didn't end up working out, and then one day struggles, and then it turns into 2 and 3, and it's like, well, I don't really need to do this, so I don't, it's not a big deal. But then it becomes a big deal, because not having that structure, my whole life was based around structure. Now not having it, I just felt lost. And I still find I need to keep my structure. I wake up at 6:15, and I let my dogs out. I pour my coffee. Very like superstitious, like almost, my structure is in the morning, and then I make my kids breakfast, and they go on the bus at 7:40, and I start working out at 8. I do 30 minutes of cardio. Like, that structure, I find happiness in that boring structure.
Yes.
And I feel, and I've started to come back the last couple of months now, where I feel happier because I have that structure. And I think it's something I didn't understand when I first retired, how important it was.
So the guys we're speaking to within the lab are retired athletes like yourself, are business guys that are looking left, looking right, looking for next. The importance of structure. Take me through those moments of retirement, those moments of what is next, and the fear that I'm going to suspect you were feeling, not knowing what next was going to be.
The fear is real, and you always think about it as your career's winding down, and you think, what it's going to be like when you're retired. But when you're still playing, you're still getting a paycheck every 2 weeks, the fear isn't really real until you get to that point where, you're 4 months in, you're 5 months in, that job is not coming down the line. That paycheck is not coming. No matter how much money you made, there's still a sense of pride where, you want to support your family, you want to continue your lifestyle. So that fear, I want to say, real or not, that fear is always kind of in the back of your mind, like what is going to happen next year? Like, when I get down the line, I can, 4 or 5 years, maybe some guys in the lab will talk to have the financial means to go 5, 6, 10, 15 years without having to worry about that. But that fear is coming down the line at some point. For me, it was real. Like, I had a great career, and I did relatively well financially, but that fear, I don't know, it'll keep you up at night on a couple of days. I've struggled with it. And I think the struggle when we talk about identity, I think, is like, what can I do and the next stage of my life, and what can I do to feel proud of myself and just find that, I don't know, the substantial feeling that I had when I was an athlete. I felt like something.
Dale, is it a loss of purpose that you feel as an athlete, where, as an athlete, your purpose is to go and perform on the ice, try to win the Stanley Cup? When that purpose is taken away from you, is that part of the loss of identity? Is like, what is my purpose now? I don't just want to be a dad. I don't just want to be a husband. I want to be more than that.
I think to be a high performer in business and a high performance athlete, you have to have that purpose. There has to be, I'm striving towards this. There always wants more. And quickly on a financial side, I played with a lot of guys that made a ton of money, but it was never enough. And even as an athlete for myself, I always want more. It was like, okay, in 2016, I signed my biggest deal. I always wanted something more. There's always a purpose. Okay, I want to win the Stanley Cup. I want to have a career year, statistic-wise. I always wanted more, and I think that's something I've found in common with a lot of business guys. Is it's never going to be enough.
But when is it enough, Dale?
I think when you truly find something, when you wake up, which hockey was for me, I woke up in the morning and I felt purpose. I felt good about myself. I was like, I'm a hockey player. I'm playing in the NHL. I'm living my dream. I felt good about that. And that purpose that I've lost since I've stopped playing, and I'm going to be honest, I haven't replaced it. I was always a good father. I was always a good husband, and I still am a great father. I'm very involved with my kids. I coach. I'm there every day. That side hasn't struggled, but the personal side, something for me. And I think as an athlete, you have that purpose, and it's like, okay, I'm a hockey player, and then I can turn it off and I can be a father and a husband. But now it's like, okay, I'm a full-time father and husband, but I don't have anything for me. I don't have that purpose. And I think that's really, when you speak to purpose, what I'm missing, there's just, I don't know what the purpose is. And I think that's your purpose and your identity are tied into one. And I think that's definitely what I'm missing.
So when Dale and I sat down a number of weeks ago to start talking about starting the show, we know that in the Business Athlete Performance Lab, we're looking to speak to retired athletes, business guys that are going through a period in their life where they're like, what's next? I've been doing this for a long time, or I want to do something next, or I'm an entrepreneur and I don't know how to get to next. When I sat down with Dale and I said, let's put a show together so you can speak to guys that are in your shoes or guys that are thinking about what's next. What kind of advice do you give to somebody who's at the tail end of their career? Somebody who's going, okay, maybe I got a year left, 2 years left, 3 years left. Looking back to Dale, who's 30, 31, you're at the end. What would you be doing differently? What are you telling those guys right now that are considering what's maybe not around the corner? NHL hockey players' careers are shorter than ever.
I think the average career span it was shortened. When I saw the last, it was like 5.5 years was the average, which to me, I think that even seems a little bit long. Maybe that was professional. I don't know if it was 5.5 years in the NHL or 5.5 years professionally, but it's not long. It's not long. And if I could speak to myself, I think I probably would have tried to reach out and find mentors a little quicker.
Interesting.
To help me out into the next. I always had interest in real estate. So I should have earlier maybe reached out to a mentor to kind of save me the heartache of a couple of things or some kind of, for me, a business mentor. You at that point in my career would have been excellent. We spoke earlier about a franchise that I dove into and things obviously did not go very well with that.
Some missteps.
Had some very big missteps. So it would have been nice to have somebody, I don't know, not just guide, but it's just, there's so many things. I want to talk to guys and kind of talk them through what I've been going through the last 2 years, and I don't have the answers.
So let's share that deal with our audience, because we're aspiring to reach an audience of guys like yourself. Mm-hmm. And we said this outside of the lab here this morning, our goal here is not to sell to guys. Our goal here is to help guys sell. Our goal here is to help guys like yourself and other business leaders achieve next. And that's when we brought Dale in. And you're going to hear much from Dale over the coming weeks, months, years, where our ambition is to help guys like yourselves avoid some of the pitfalls that perhaps you've gone through.
I think a lot of guys in the NHL think about what they want to do in the next step, and a lot of it involves business, but they don't know how to do it, much like myself. I had a little bit of extra cash sitting around. I decided to invest into a business, and I lost every dollar.
Ouch.
And thank goodness I was in a situation that I could afford to lose the money, but I wish I didn't. I wish I could have got into a different situation if I had, someone. And the NHL they don't really do anything for you, and that's kind of the sad part. That's the gap I'm hoping me and you can fill for not only NHL players, but all professional athletes, where we can show you the guide, we can give you the resources you need, and the people to save you some of the heartaches. And I'm not saying I have all the answers, because I haven't figured it out, but I've gone through the last couple of years. I've lost money. I've got into businesses. I've lost money. I have some of those experiences that I can help guys and try to guide you into finding the purpose and finding the results that you're looking for. And that's why I just want to speak to guys, because I don't want guys to go through what I've gone through. Losing money is never fun for anybody.
Of course.
Yes. As you can speak to it too.
We don't profess to be experts here in the lab, but what we can give you is our experiences. And what our ambition is to be your explorers. Share with you what we've been through, share with you our experiences, and hopefully give you guys a safe space to belong, a community, a team. Because I got to imagine, Dale, I have to imagine you're part of a team your whole life. You wake up one day and you're like this. Holy fuck, man. Where did my team go? I can't imagine that feeling of loneliness. And I'm sure a lot of guys don't want to confront that loneliness. Would that be fair?
I think it's absolutely fair. I mean, I can text guys that I used to play with and say, hey, how are you and stuff. And you can have, some laughs and stuff, but it's never really that community that's truly there for you. And it is sad. I know, speaking from a hockey perspective, you have 23 built-in best friends when you're on a team. You can get traded one day, you go to the next dressing room, you have 23 built-in best friends. And it's a great feeling. As hockey guys, I'm sure like all other athletes that I've met a lot of NFL guys and football and baseball players, and it's much of the same. You go to a new team, you have 20 best friends, everybody welcomes you, and it's a great feeling. And you're so used to being a teammate. You have your cliques on the team, but you have 20 guys that are pulling in the same direction. When you lose that, you have your other hat, like I said, where I'm very happy. I have my family, I have my wife.
But it's not the same.
But it's so different. It's and I play beer league once a week now, and it's nice to have that camaraderie for a couple hours a week. But it's still not the same. And I'm still looking for it. I'm hoping we can build up a big enough team in the lab here that we can find that purpose for guys, because it's lonely. It is a lonely feeling when you're sitting there at night, and I'm sitting there on a Friday night and everyone's gone to bed. I'm sitting there by myself, and you start thinking about those things, and that's definitely the team aspect I definitely miss being a part of.
So if you're watching this or listening to this on the podcast, we have big aspirations, and I'll just say it, to make you guys feel like you belong. We really have an ambition here to create a safe space, to create a community, to create a place where guys like yourself, Dale, guys that are on the, going to be yourself here soon, or have been retired for a while going, I don't know what's next, come hang out with us in the lab. Come hang out with camaraderie, build a team, accomplish some wonderful things. We're going to talk about transformation here a little bit. So when guys are getting towards the end of their career, they're having the conversation with their wives or their girlfriends, and they're reflecting upon what's next. What are they thinking about? What are they really thinking about, Dale? What are they scared about?
Well, I think the very, very real fear of what am I going to do with my time every day? I love my wife. I adore her. But I can't spend every single waking minute with my wife. We've never done that in our relationship. During the season for 8 months, I'm away for 2 weeks. Then I'm home for a week. Even when I'm home, I'm not there all day.
So what's that dynamic like?
So it's we're working through it for sure. Like we butt heads a lot now. And we have a strong relationship that we can talk about it openly, which is excellent, because we're working our way through it together. And I think that's a real fear that guys I never thought about. I didn't think it'd be an issue. Because it's great when I go away for 2 weeks during the season. When I was playing, I come back. It's great to see my wife. I haven't seen her in 2 weeks. But when I'm there all the time, you start to butt heads on different ways you live, and things just change. So your relationship with your wife is a real fear. Once you realize, not a fear, I shouldn't say.
No, but I kind of think it is though a little bit, because it's that. And listen, I love my wife just like you love your wife, and it's not about a fear of being with your wife. It's that fear of not knowing maybe how it's going to work.
The uncertainty for sure, and that's. She would probably say the same thing about me, because it's just something that we've never worked through.
Because your marriage is also tied to the identity of the hockey player.
Yes.
The lifestyle of that. And that's, rightly or wrongly, but there's a lifestyle associated with that.
That is a great point too. That fear is always, and I'll say, that fear's in the back of your mind.
Sure.
Your wife has only ever known this lifestyle. What if I can't provide that lifestyle anymore? What if they're used to very exotic trips and
nice handbags, nice
expensive gifts
and
restaurants all the time, because not only I wanted to go to them, but it's nice to do those nice things. You live in these fancy cities. Is it a different story when that lifestyle changes and I'm living in Lac du Bonnet and we're going to the dive bars here and there? Like, that's a real fear. That's a real fear I've had, and it hasn't prevailed. And like most of our fears, they're kind of internally. And when you do face them head on, you realize it's not that big of a fear, but that was a real fear.
But Dale, that's relatable to our audience though. There's guys sitting there going, holy smokes, I don't know. Who can I talk to about this? Who can I talk to about the fact that my career is over? I love my wife, but she's driving me nuts. She's expecting this. How do I have this? And listen, I don't want to be pointing this on the wives. It's everybody's mirror in this situation. But I would imagine this is not a topic often discussed. And I'm going to also assume the lack of support that exists when hockey career is done. And the PA is done.
From everywhere. And I can give you a personal touch on this. I met my agent when I was 19. Once the story I previously told about my other agent, I fired them. I got a new agent when I was 19. These guys saw me go through everything in life. You know, I thought we're a team. And when my career finished, so did my relationship with my agent. I can't even get a text on my birthday anymore. Like, that relationship went to zero, which was hurtful for me. I was a 19-year-old kid when I met my agent. I thought this person had my best interests. With a lot of relationships in my professional life, where when you stop playing, that relationship ends and that support ends from everybody.
It's interesting you say that, Dale, because I have a real challenge with some terms that are used in business often, which is, and we just heard it here recently with our local hockey team, Winnipeg Jets, big Jets fan, by the way.
Huge Jets fan now.
Is this idea of we're a family. Business is family until I don't need you anymore. Talk about that, because to build a strong business, you have to create the illusion that you're a family, because you got to get people buying in and drinking the Kool-Aid. But when going gets tough, you got to cut family members. Mm-hmm. Is business family, Dale, or is business business?
I choose to run my business as a family. Like, I don't know if I could sleep at night doing, and this is why I haven't been able to transition. I don't want to be a scout in hockey. I don't want anything to do with professional hockey, because professional sports are cutthroat. There is no family. It is exactly what you said. You are only good to me when I can gain something from you. And that is something as an athlete, like I shared about my agent and like I shared about a lot of relationships, which is, it's been hard for me to deal with, because I'm a trusting person.
But you're actually a piece of meat.
That's all you are. You're a depreciating asset, sorry, as you go forward. And it's a tough pill to swallow, because you think these people have your best interests and these people are there for you. But when it really matters, you know, have I gotten a text asking how I am mentally in the last 2 years from my agent or any of these people, the NHLPA? Have they messaged me and said, how are you doing mentally? Not a thing. They put all these programs out there that they say they have. Where are they? Did they lose my email? My email's been the same. Like, they're not there for you. None of these people are in professional sports, speaking just from my experiences, they're not there for you. When the lights dim and you're not walking into the Bell Center on Saturday nights and you're not providing them with a paycheck every month, you're done.
I love the fact, Dale, that you use the term depreciating asset, because we typically associate depreciating assets with vehicles, things that we see sitting in our yard depreciating. Mm-hmm. But you are a depreciating asset in front of the public. You're starting out as a young punk playing hockey. You're a superstar. You're growing your way, but you're only getting older every single year. Mm-hmm. And you're only going further down the depreciating asset list. It can't be a comfortable feeling at all.
No.
And it's not talked about in the sport.
No, and nobody really wants to talk about it.
There you go. Part one. That was part one. Live in the lab after the buzzer with Dale Weise. Wow. Some hitting. Some stuff there. The guy opens up. He lays it out there. Hasn't talked to his agent. I don't know. I don't know how that makes me feel. But hey, I guess that's how it works. That's how business works, right? So we all operate our businesses differently. And the agent decided that, well, you're an asset that's now done. And we're done with you. On to the next hockey player, on to the next piece of meat. Monetize. See you later. And hey, listen, we are running part 2 next week, as you know. Before any of you that are watching this, let me just boost the tunes because it's happy. So I want to calm the tone here. Any of you that are watching this that are saying, millionaire athlete crying, I don't know what's next. I don't know where I'm going to get my paycheck from next. Just leave it out the door. Leave it out the door. No time for that here. It really has nothing to do with it. Go back and listen to yesterday's show with Ian Clark. The guy almost died. 46, who said he had 36 months to live. And he's like, really? Okay, well, I need to go and beat that. The guy's 65. Look, he tells me yesterday that he is actually 23 inside. Why do I share that with you? Because he says to me, he says, Keith, he says, when that happens to you, money is not the currency. Time is the currency in your life. So I say that to you. This has nothing to do with Dale not finding next. This is not about whining, crying hockey players, professional athletes that are complaining because they aren't getting a call from their agent. No, we're just having a discussion around what happens to these people that we revere after we put them on the stage. What happens to them next? Where do they go next? Well, you know where they go next? They come to the lab. We're inviting them to come spend some time in the Business Athlete Performance Lab, build that community, have that space, not be sold to, help them find the next space in their life. So next Friday, we're going to drop part 2. Dale keeps digging into his experience as a retired athlete and what he's doing next. Got to be honest with you, while that clip was running, I just got a text from the guy. And Dale and I were supposed to be in the lab today recording for next week. And he sends me a post. He's like, I'm at Hockey for Homeless right now. The Hockey for Homeless tournament. My legs are burning. So there you go. Giving back, still giving back to the community. Even though inside, still looking for next. And I can tell you from my own experience working with Dale here in the last few years, a number of months specifically, the guy's well on his way to next. And I'm really proud of him coming forward and sharing his story with all of you. We're going to wrap it up for another episode of Live in the Lab, live in the Business Athlete Performance Lab with episode 1 of After the Buzzer. We're lining up a suite of guests for Friday after Friday after Friday with Dale. Hopefully we can fill all the gaps. We have somebody else coming up booked for November 17th in a couple weeks from now. I can reveal that probably next week once we get it confirmed. But we're looking to line up some really interesting content for you as our audience to enjoy along the way. Have a great weekend. We're back next Monday. And hey, before I go, it's no month. It's no month, right? So if you have something to say no to, a poison, and it might not even be a poison, it just might be this fact that you always say yes to everything. That can be sometimes your biggest mistake from moving forward. But I know that if you don't find something no to, you're lying to yourself. So whether that's putting drinks aside for a few weeks and getting your blood work done, whether it's putting the peanut butter jar aside, whether it's putting the chocolate bars aside, whether it's putting the salt aside, maybe November is the month you can just consider saying no. Just say no to something. Trust me, after meeting with Ian Clark yesterday, the least I can do, the least we all could do, frankly, is take 30 days to say no to something. On that note, I'm Keith Bilous. Let's pump up some Happy Tree again. Yeah, let's pump up some Happy Tree again. On that note, I'm Keith Bilous. I'm live in the lab, and I'm pumped. We're feeling the rhythm. The club is getting bigger, and the audience is arriving. I'm Keith Bilous, and I'm out of here. Where's that button again? There it is.